Hello and welcome. Thank you so much for tuning in and for watching. It's really good to have your company and to have you with me right now. Now, for those of you who have already watched this broadcast, this is going to be exactly the same. However, this is also for the people on my Influencers of Times Facebook page that haven't yet seen this live broadcast. So if you've already seen this broadcast, you can watch it again if you want, and if not, then obviously you've already seen it. Now, for those of you on my Influencers of Times Facebook page, and for those of you on that page who are watching for the first time, the purpose of this broadcast and the ones that I've brought to you previously, basically what I try and do is as a spin-off from my website, and that website is www.camdronephotography. On my website, go there, have a look, check it out. On my website you'll see a little bar, little heading saying Influencers of Times, and the purpose of that extra page, that additional page to my website, is purely for this purpose: to bring you to derelict and abandoned locations so that you can have a look, so that you can see, so that I can bring you information about that place, that I can take photographs and put them on that on my website, on that page. So check out the website again. It's www.camdronephotography. Have a look at my drone photography website anyway, and the photographs. Have a look on to Influencers of Times, and you will see every single location, every abandoned or derelict or interesting location that I've been to so far, including this one, on that page. Now, I've taken lots of photographs already today, inside and out, so all the photographs along with all the information that I'm about to share with you, and it will be on that page. And you're more than welcome to go onto Google, look up this place, have a look, read up about it, yeah, check it out. So, for those of you who remember in my last broadcast, and also I posted an event onto the Facebook page to say that we would try and be at a very special location today. I'm so pleased to say that we're in that location. You can probably see anyway, we're in that location. Now, I am so pleased and so excited to bring you this message. This is without question the biggest, largest, oldest, most fascinating and amazing location I have ever been to or seen in my life. It is enormous. The place is huge. So where are we? Okay, so I've actually brought you away from Birmingham altogether. In fact, I've brought you the furthest I've ever travelled to any location ever. I've brought you 122 miles north of Birmingham. So without further ado, I welcome you to Old Lane Mill in Halifax. Now, Halifax is in the very centre of the Midlands and the North. In fact, we're actually in Yorkshire, and we're surrounded by bustling, busy cities. Halifax is a huge, busy city, literally just a few miles away, and this location is literally just a few miles, maybe just a mile and a half or so away from the city centre. Halifax is right in the middle. Furthest away to our west, we've got Manchester and Liverpool. To the south, we've got Birmingham, we've got Sheffield. To the east, we've got York, we've got Scunthorpe, and we've got Whitby up towards the coast. And then sort of north and northeast, we've got Leeds, we've got Bradford. So we're literally surrounded by all these fascinating places. Now, Old Lane Mill is the oldest location. It is a fascinating 193 years old, so it's nearly 200 years old. It's nearly 2 decades old, and I have to say, despite the fact that it's 193 years old, it's in very good condition. And even though there aren't any artifacts left here, its condition is still really good inside and out, although obviously there is some wear and tear, there's some damage, that kind of thing, but it's actually in relatively good condition considering its age. Old Lane Mill is the oldest, largest, multi-storey, steam-powered, iron-framed mill of its kind left in the whole of Yorkshire. The biggest, the oldest, the most impressive. Now, it was built in 1825 to 1828, and it's made with hammerstone and ashlar design. So it's very typical sort of light brown kind of design. You could probably, if I turn the camera around in a minute, you'll have a look. Sort of light brown colour, very distinctive and typical of the 18th, 19th century Victorian times. and it also would have dominated, as well as other mills of its kind, would have dominated the skyline of Halifax, the surrounding area, as well as all the other cities in this part. So you've got Manchester, Bradford and Leeds. They all share this typical brick colour and design. Now then, if I stand to one side, you can see we are at the highest point of the mill. We're actually in the roof of the mill itself, so we're 5 or 6 stories high. It's a really high building. We're probably a couple hundred feet easily above the ground. And you can see that the roof itself, you obviously see the rain, but you've got this arch-shaped roof. Now in here would have been, and it's actually a recess-shaped roof, and up here would have been a flywheel. Now that flywheel would have been either cocked or smooth, but I'm not quite sure. There may have been one large one or a number of smaller ones, but their purpose would have been to turn around, powered by the steam and from the smoke from the chimney stack and the power building just next door, would have driven that flywheel, and that in itself would have produced power to produce power to the rest of the factory, to the rest of the mill, for the machinery, for the lighting and so forth. Obviously there was electricity, however it would have produced a lot of energy. So this is the roof. Like I said, if I turn to one side you can see just how big it is. You can make out that parts of the roof are actually missing. The corrugated part of the building is missing, however there's still quite a lot here, and it really is quite fascinating. You can hear probably noise in the background as well. Now just over that way, and I'll show you in a minute, we've got the Dean, or the Clough Dean mill, which is up and running today. It's a massive plant, absolutely enormous, and it dwarfs this building. It's huge, it's still in production today. Just behind us we've got the motorway, we've got residential housing just over there, we've got housing all up that way, but it's almost like the mill itself is in a kind of valley, almost like shrouded, almost like not like a secret, but it's just shrouded by hills and landscape and trees and shrubs, very typical of Yorkshire and this part of the Midlands. So there you go. So we're in the recessed part, the highest point of the mill. I'll take you through into the next bit, so I'll give you a bit of a tour. So I'll just pick you up so you can just get an idea. If I just stand that way, you can get an idea of okay, so we're just going to walk through there. Come from this way. If I stand over here, I'll just lift the camera up a little bit. That is the original. Oh, where am I? There you go. That, believe it or not, is the original clock, where the original clock would have been. And you can see Clough Dean Mill in the distance, which is still in production today. So that would have been the original, where the original clock would have been. It doesn't say what kind of clock or anything else, but that would have been a clock face there. So we're kind of in this little section just off the roof. So I'm just going to take you, because the rain's eased off a little bit, so I'm just going to take you down to the next couple of floors so you can see. So just go down flights of steps. I'll just give you an idea. Turn the camera that way, so you can see the motorway and there's the mill in the distance. So we're just going to come down these steps. The first part, as you come down the steps, each floor comes out onto a little kind of couple of rooms. So we've got a little room, just to come in. We've got a little room in there, and then we come into this kind of like box room. So you can just see that. Now, I'm not actually quite sure what those rooms were used for, but each floor has got a little kind of room at the end. That might have been used as a storage room, it could have been used for pretty much anything, I don't know. Just there, and I'll show you in a little while, there's a shaft and it runs all the way from the top right down to the ground. Now it's fallen through, so it's quite dangerous. There's no doors left, the hinges are still left on the walls, and it's a shaft. It looks like a kind of lift shaft, so it could have been used for transporting and manoeuvring equipment, textiles, and that kind of thing in between the floors. It could have been used for actual people, I'm not quite sure, but that's the lift shaft there, and we'll have a look at that in a minute. Now then, so we're roughly on the 4th or 5th floor now, so we're on the floor beneath the roof of this mill. Each floor, and if I just stand to one side, each floor is divided by these huge steel pillars, rows and rows and rows of them, supporting each story. Now they're the original pillars. Each floor has got 8 windows on either side, flanked on either side, large windows. The far end we've got 5, and at the top end we've got another 5 with a lift shaft in the middle. If I point just over that way, just there, the tip of my finger, that part of the building actually comes out in a V shape, so it's like that. And this was specially designed, and it runs the whole height of the building. Its design was to allow more daylight into the building to capture sunlight and that kind of thing. So, and it was also used as a viewing place. You could actually stand in that bit and actually look out. Obviously the grounds of this place are quite big, even though it's derelict and abandoned. The grounds are quite big, so it would have been used as a viewing point to kind of see deliveries, that kind of thing. So yeah, so that would have been that. Now, I'm actually standing in the main part of the building. It's rectangular in shape. Like I said, it's about 5 stories high. Now next door, and I'll show you in a minute, we've got the kind of the steam house or the powerhouse and the chimney. Now the chimney stack is still standing, and it's not until you actually go down to it and actually look at it from the ground that you realise just how tall. I mean, it's several hundred feet high. It towers almost as high as the building itself, and it's massive in diameter. Now, I did say to you that it was built, this mill was built in 1825 to 28, by Mr. Ackroyd. In 1836 it was taken over by the Rawson family, and the Rawson family continued to use the mill, run the mill, take over the business. It doesn't say when this mill stopped production or when it actually closed. It doesn't say. However, reports suggest that this mill has been derelict and abandoned for nearly 100 years, or maybe even 100 years. As many as 4,000 or 5,000 people would have worked here at any given time. Men, women and children all worked in this very factory or mill, and it's fascinating to think that I'm standing where all those people would have worked all that time ago. It really is extraordinary to think that I'm standing on a floor which would have been crowded. I mean, I can only imagine that the factory would have been a very crowded, uncomfortable place to work. I don't know if the place would have been very cold in the winter time, or vice versa in the summertime, or it would have been very hot. I'm not sure, but it was indications and reports suggest it was a very crowded and uncomfortable place to work. And obviously working conditions have changed. I mean, we're in the 20th century, 21st century. Things have changed, so I can only imagine it was very smelly, sooty, horrible, not very nice, that kind of thing. You can imagine all those people working here. So these floors would have been riddled with looms and machinery and people and just, yeah, and the smell of smoke and steam and that kind of thing. Now, when Ackroyd built this mill, it was a steam-powered one. He also made it supposedly fireproof. He made it with iron supports and almost like textiles within the fabrications of this building. However, in 1905, this mill witnessed the largest fire it ever witnessed. In fact, I think it was one of the largest fires any mill of its kind in this area had witnessed. It was so large it lasted for nearly 3 days, or just about 3 days from the time it started to the time that the last smouldering embers were put out. 3 days. It was that big it completely destroyed the steam or powerhouse next door. It burnt the roof entirely. There's nothing left. The only thing that's left is the iron supports within the roof that were supposed to make it fireproof to start with. The chimney's untouched. There's a huge boiler outside, and in fact as you go downstairs and go into that part of the building, if you go to the base of the chimney stack, there's a large opening, like the door's missing, or the hatch is missing. However, you can actually crouch down and look into the base of the chimney, and it's a huge square room or kind of space which would have been used where they would have basically just shoveled coal and things to burn to produce the power because the next to the chimney is like what's left of some kind of engine, so it would have driven that, and that would have produced the power, as well as the flywheel in the recess upstairs. Now I'm not going to take you down there because it's typical British weather. It's raining outside, it's not very nice, and there's almost enough space to actually go into that recess and actually be beneath the chimney, but I'm not going to do that because it's way too dangerous. I will get absolutely covered in dust and ashes. There's ash and just a great big pile of just what's left of ash, so I'm not going to do that anymore. I don't want to take you in and get all dusty and sooty things, but it's fascinating to look at, it really is. The far end, that end, not on these floors, but I think it's about the second or third floor, there's a huge loading bay section, and it looks like there's a big iron frame that is erected above that space, so it looks like that would have been some kind of trolley or pulley system which would have used, or it could have been a loading bay for an old railway line. I'm not quite sure, but it's a huge open space. It's a bit dangerous in there, so I'm not going to take you over there because some of the concrete has actually fallen away, but there's a huge kind of loading bay kind of area. Like I mentioned earlier, all the floors are very similar to this one. I'll take you down to the next floor and then we'll see if we can get some views just outside. But before I do, if I just bring you over this way, I'm not going to stand any closer, but if I just show you, that's what's left of the hinges. And if I just pan, you can see, if I do that, you can get an idea. That's what's left of the lift shaft, and you can see it's completely fallen all the way through, so it's far too dangerous for me to get any closer, and I don't particularly want to drop my phone down there either. It's a huge, massive drop. That's what's left of the lift shaft. So we'll come over this way. You can see just how big these floors. Now every floor is the same size. 5 of these floors, massive, huge floors. So we'll come over this way. Get an idea. Do you remember I said to you about the V-shaped part of the building? It's this bit here. You can see it's like a V-shape. Again, I'm not going to stand any closer because it's actually fallen all the way through. But if I show you, you can kind of get an idea. Didn't want to lose you there. You can get an idea of just how big that shaft is. So that's going up to the ceiling. And if I just pan, if I do this, so there's the chimney, and that is what's left. That's what's left of the house. You can see the chimney there. So that kind of gives you an idea of what's left of next door. So you've got the chimney, and then you've got that kind of steam house or powerhouse. So that's what's left of it. You can see how the fire has completely demolished the roof altogether. So I'm just going to take you down to the next floor. Just go down a few flights of steps. You can get an idea of how high up we are as well. Just take from it. So if I just look, so now you can see, if I turn the camera that way, you can get an idea of how high we are, just how big the building is. It's huge. Okay, so we're now the next one. It's kind of similar to the other ones. So there you go. So there you go. So Old Lane Mill in Halifax, the largest multi-storey steam-powered mill of its kind, left still standing in the whole of Yorkshire. built in 1825 to 28 by Mr. Ackroyd, taken over by the Rawson family in 1836. 193 years old. Mr. Ackroyd was the first person to design and actually use a jacquard loom. Now, I haven't had a chance to actually find out what a jacquard loom is. I know what a loom is. That would have been used to actually produce the wool, and this is actually a wool mill as well as a textiles mill. So this would have produced absolutely tons of wool, which would have then been dispersed to other parts of the UK and that kind of thing. Now, we're not that far away from the canal. I don't really know how the place would have looked back in 1825, but you know, it produced all that wool. That's a lot of wool, tons and tons of wool, and that would have been like distributed around the surrounding areas. Mills like this in Yorkshire, Bradford, Leeds, Halifax, Sheffield, Huddersfield, you know, we've got Manchester, all those, like Birmingham, all the wool mills would have produced lots and lots of wool which have been distributed. So there you go. 1905, huge fire, destroyed next door, nothing left. I just don't think there's anything I've missed out. I think that's everything. So I'm going to finish there. Thank you so much for tuning in. I am absolutely delighted that you've watched this live broadcast, or even if you watch it at a later time. Hopefully it was interesting for you, fascinating to you. I'm not going to take you anywhere else because it's pretty much the same. Like I said, the floors are exactly the same, and it's a little bit too wet and things to give you an idea of what it's like outside. But go to the website, have a look at the photographs. All the photographs I've taken today will be on there, as well as the information that I've shared with you today. Have a look, Google it some more, see what you can find out. Thank you so much for tuning in. I really appreciate your support. It means so much to me. I absolutely love bringing you these broadcasts, and I feel so privileged and humbled to be able to bring you these messages. I really do. I only wish that you could experience it, actually, because showing is not the same as feeling it, but it really is something else. So thank you for your support. Please continue to keep watching. I will promise to make them as professional and as interesting as I possibly can, and it's certainly interesting for me. It helps me to understand more about what's around and all the rest of the places. So keep watching, stay tuned. There'll be another live broadcast in a couple of weeks, or in the next week or two, I'm not quite sure, but I've got another place in mind. However, again, it depends on whether I can do a live broadcast from there or not, but keep watching. Hopefully I will be able to bring you another broadcast very soon. For any reason I can't bring that broadcast to you, then obviously I will find a different location. I've already done some digging around and some research. It looks as though I should be able to bring a broadcast, but we'll have to wait and see. But keep watching anyway. Alright, visit the website. Like I said, have a look, check out all the other photography that I've done for other various places. Also in the next couple of days, because I'm off work for 4 days, so in the next 2 or 3 days I'm actually going to do something that I've never done before. I'm going to revisit a location that we've already been to. I'm not going to tell you when, I'm not going to tell you where. It won't be a live broadcast because the signal just isn't strong enough, and I just cannot do a live broadcast from within this location. So it will be a pre-recorded message, but it will be slightly different. The purpose of it is not really to give you information about the place, because I will already have done that. However, it's to give you an idea of what it's like in that location. I'm not going to say any more, but it will be slightly different, and I'm hoping that you'll find it maybe not fascinating, but maybe a little bit interesting. It's only going to be a short message. It'll only be a couple of minutes, maybe a little bit longer, but I just want to go back to this location, and it's very strange because it was almost like as if as soon as I was leaving I felt drawn to either stay there longer or to go back, which is something I've never felt with any other place ever. I just feel compelled or drawn to go back there. So I'm going to go back there with you, and we'll just go in there, and that's it. It's only going to be a short message. So thank you so much. Like I said, I do hope that you found this interesting. So, and hopefully each time I bring a message, it's more interesting and a little bit more professional. Because I do get a bit nervous before I go on air, because I'm aware of lots of people watching. So stay tuned. God bless you. Take care. Until the next time.